Again. Okay. Everybody fit in. You want us logging on and all that good stuff? Okay. You want us logged in or just ignore the computers tonight?
Look at us getting all relaxed. And Joe's not showing up? I tell you.
Yeah, they got them up here.
Do I need to log in though like normal or?
I think so.
Okay, John.
David, nice to meet you, John. Mr. Mayor, good to see you again. David and Eddie, how are you? Thanks for the invite. Hi, David and Eddie. Very nice to meet you, Liz.
Oh, does it work?
All right.
Doug Taylor.
Hi, Doug. David and Eddie. Very nice to meet you, Dave.
Okay.
All right. That's fine.
Do I just put my? Yeah.
Good to see you again. Bob, good to see you. How are you, man?
I hope we're closer to under an hour. Should be.
Hi, John.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you get this one right here.
I didn't really look to see where what was going on, so. Yeah.
I made it.
There's a little thing.
And they do it all the time. They would really register.
Yeah, we'll do we do our regular, what they do.
Ooh, that looks like a karaoke mic, actually. So, and you're up. Let's see what you got.
All right, Lori, you ready? All right. All right, we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. For the record, it is April 1st, 2024 at 6:02 p.m. for City Council joint meeting with West Ada School District Board of Trustees. We will begin at least the Meridian City Council portion of this meeting with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Cavanagh.
Here.
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Here.
Councilman Taylor.
Here.
Councilman Overton.
Here.
Councilwoman Strader.
Here.
Mayor Simison.
Here. Do you guys also need to do a roll call? Okay. Then with that, we'll move on to adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Strader.
I move that we adopt the agenda as published.
Second.
I have a motion, and a second to adopt the agenda as published. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. First, before we get into the first item, I just want to say welcome to everybody. It's great to get together and faces to names and conversations and engagement. You know, that's what's the important part about this tonight. It's not necessarily everything that we're going to talk about on the agenda or the updates we get, but I think that's also important for us all to hear. So appreciate Dr. Bob, Chairwoman Frazier for helping make this happen this evening and for everyone's attendance, despite us lacking Mr. Borton, but we'll give him a break tonight.
Now.
Kick him out. So with that, we will begin with item 1, which is the West Ada School District Legislative Session Update. Did anything happen this year?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, trustees. Sorry, my apologies. I have a cold tonight, so you'll just have to have to listen to my voice. Can you pull up the PowerPoint, or is there a magic I need to do?
One moment, I'll have that up for you. Then you'll have
Perfect,
control.
thank you.
Actually, I'd let go of the mouse so I can do that. Thanks.
Wonderful.
All right, you have control.
You guys can see the PowerPoint?
Press the presentation button there.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll stop driving. Okay. Thank you. So what happened? We have two people driving at the same time. So my name is Jonathan Gillen. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here for the district. I'm going to briefly share a little bit about House Bill 521 and the impact we'll have on our budget and facilities. So I think first we need to just start by saying thank you. Thank you to members of City Council, Mr. Mayor. We have our trustees here, legislators. This has been a lot of work to bring House Bill 521 to fruition. And so there are a lot of thank yous that go around. It's going to be a great investment in education and in our facilities. And so thank you to all who have done work to do that, and in particular those before us. So what is House Bill 521? It's essentially dollars that are going to be allocated specifically for use for facilities and maintenance. We're not entirely sure what the dollar amount is going to be yet. So there's still some trailer bills. There's still some things going on downtown. The legislature hasn't actually ended. And so once we have that dollar amount, I would be more than willing to share an update with you of what it's going to look like. I can tell you that we're working through a facility plan as well. We have hired an outside contractor to start that. So we'll really align those dollar amount and the dollars we receive with that facility plan so that we can start identifying what are the needs of the district and how we utilize these dollars effectively. It is a 10-year appropriation. So if you've read the bill, it'll be over 10 years that we'll be able to have access to this money. There are some ways in which we could draw it down in advance of the 10 years. And so the district will kind of evaluate that as we work through once the final bill is signed. It does utilize our current funding. We receive approximately $40 million across 10 years, or $4 million a year in lottery and a bond levy equalization funding. And so those dollars were attached to this bill. So you may hear us talk about some of the maintenance needs that we have will essentially come from this bill's funding. So we'll set aside $40 million to meet what is currently utilized through our lottery funds, is what we call it, to meet our maintenance needs for the district, with the residual should it, when the additional is, and once the number is calculated, used for facility needs. It'll allow us to meet immediate maintenance needs and growth needs. And if you've read the bill, there also is some tax relief associated with previous House Bill 292 funding, which is tax relief we use associated with levy dollars, along with there's just tax relief in the bill itself. There is some adjustments to tax rates. And I only have one slide tonight, so now's your chance to ask questions should you have any, or I can hang out for a little bit as well.
Green is on, red is off. That's just for everyone's benefit. You're green now.
Okay, I'm green. We really wanted to time this in a effective way in which we could talk a lot about where we're at with 521. Unfortunately, with legislature still being in session and some things still up in the air, we just don't want to jump to any conclusions. We know that I will just say from West Ada's standpoint, we're really thankful. I know that the mayor and the council have spoken out several times, encouraging our state to step in and help with facilities. Our board has been a really big advocates on trying to help West Ada out with facilities and statewide with facilities. So we're thankful for our legislature who got something done. And we are just really hoping that it ends up the way it looks like it is, so we can start to meet some of those short-term and long-term needs of West Ada.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments related to the legislative session?
Thank you.
Well, more to come. Okay. Thank you very much. Very, very easy first item. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it very much. Next up is the West Ada item 2, which is the West Ada School District Student Generation Reports.
Mr. Mayor, Dr. Bubb, honorable council members, honorable trustees. My name is David Reinhardt. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for West Ada School District. And I am going to talk a little bit about student generation rates, our hotspots in terms of growth and development, in terms of school enrollment, and talk about our plan going forward. We do recognize that since Marcy Horner's departure in the about a year ago, we've been dealing with things in only a case-by-case scenario when it comes to sending you letters or sending other cities letters regarding growth. We've recently adjusted that to step up that effort so that we respond to all of your development proposals, all of your applications for development. And in the slide, I've outlined a little bit how that looks. I will be overseeing that effort, and I'll be meeting with city planning offices in our 4 municipalities, sometimes 5 municipalities. And we'll also be meeting with developers of larger scale so that we could talk about how we can work together to minimize any kind of impacts in our schools as they grow up. So, and then I think you may know Miss Miranda Carson, who we greatly welcomed a few months ago. Miranda will be doing our projections for enrollment. She'll also be addressing long-term planning for our district. If we have a need to rezone or do any of those projects, that's a pretty heavy data load, and Miranda will be helping us with that. And then finally, we're working between a couple of people internally that are going to assist with making sure those letters get to you. In our current state, we have a backlog, and so I'll be reaching out to your planners as well as the other planners to talk about how we can address any of those developments that are backlogged. I want to draw attention to a couple of our hot spots. The first number that you'll see on the slide is current enrollment as of March 1st. And the second number is not the architectural capacity of our schools, but more of what we think of as the program capacity. So some classrooms, say a SPED classroom or a classroom with special needs, rather than putting 25 students in those classrooms, sometimes there's 4 or 5 students in those. So architectural is always higher than operational or our program capacity. But none of these will come as a surprise to you. You live in the community, you know the community. Pleasant View is certainly a rapidly growing community, or the area around Pleasant View. Owyhee High School, the same. The Chaparral, just off at 10 Mile, is we also are finding is because of some of the growth in 10 Mile and some of the growth in that area has certainly become quite full, as is Hillsdale, 2 middle schools, Heritage and Victory, and Mountain View School. A school of interest is River Valley. River Valley still has a little capacity, but if they're just off Eagle Road, and that particular school is seeing some influx of, we say ML students, multilingual students, sometimes refugees, sometimes other students. And so that's another area that we're seeing some change. What we do when a school is full or close to full and the development comes on board, and this will always be reflected in our letters to your planning department, will be that we may adjust boundaries at some point. There's a possibility to bus students to overflow schools. We have some schools under capacity, so that's a possibility for us. As our portable classrooms we have built a number of those or brought a number of those to our buildings. And we can also move programs. So sometimes we have a preschool at one school and we shift it over to another to free up a classroom or 2. Are there any questions about this particular slide or those particular schools?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schrader.
maybe just a good time to make a couple comments. Just speaking as one council member, but I've heard it from everybody else. these letters are very important to us, and we really appreciate you preparing to provide them again. I think it would be fantastic if we could see kind of the projection model when it's ready. A couple of years ago, that was produced, and we found that extremely helpful in terms of getting comfortable that the school district had a plan. These schools are all over capacity. Just curious, what schools are under capacity?
Councilman Strader, many of them, I could read a number of them from the city of Meridian, but schools such as, I'm gonna have to put, Paramount is a little under capacity. Most of our schools other schools have a classroom or two, and again, we can move people. Pepperidge is a little under. Peregrine is under. I could send out a list to you all. Ours are kind of, we have star in the middle of it and the eagle in the middle of it. But every neighborhood is alive. And so those numbers change a little bit depending on housing rates, interest rates, price of housing, and how things evolve in a neighborhood. So currently there are a number that are under capacity, and that's what we really evaluate to see if we would ever bus students to another school or if we need to rezone in a particular area.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Strader.
But just to summarize what I'm hearing from your slide, and I'd be curious to hear kind of what other people think, but I'm hearing you have capacity, that you're going to continue to adjust boundaries, continue to bus, continue to do all the things you've been doing. We asked you a couple of years ago a pretty blunt question: what do you need from us? Can you still handle the amount of growth that's coming? And I'm going to ask the same question today. So just throwing that out there.
You want to wait to answer that question till the end of the presentation?
I saw Dr. Bob move to his
I can go
microphone.
ahead
So.
and answer
Dr. Bob.
that, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Strader. We still have enough room to be able to adjust for growth. We touched a little bit about some of the Meridian schools that we have a little bit of capacity. I will say Meridian's a great city. There's a lot of people that want to live here. Our schools are packed. When we say there's a little bit of room, that means there's a classroom. It doesn't mean that there's multiple classrooms. When we go down we call it the Cloverdale corridor there, and we see some of our smaller schools and we see a slower rate of growth. Those are all in that Boise area, not necessarily in the Meridian area. But we will continue to look at different options. Boundary adjustments, I think we will look at boundaries as we head into this next school year, not for this next school year, so nobody has to worry about that. But that boundary process is a really long process to make sure that we have full transparency with everybody. But I think that we need to start looking at that to make sure that we can move some students around. That's never popular. And not only is it not popular, I don't know that I ever love to see that for kids. You're going to pick a third grader up and say, hey, I know all your friends. I know that everything you had was at this school. We're going to now move you to this other school. That's our worst case scenario. But in some of our schools, we are in that worst case scenario, and we need to be able to adjust so we can continue to meet the needs of the cities.
Dr. Reinhardt, can you speak a little bit to our transportation struggles that sometimes come up when we talk about transporting a handful of kids from one area to another? Because obviously with the city of Meridian, we have so many schools, we have so many boundaries that we're dealing with, but of course, because we're in Star and we're in Eagle and we're in a lot of other areas, those are some landlocked spots. And so to move busing, I think you can speak well to.
Mr. Mayor, Chairwoman Frazier, thank you for the question. Yes, we can talk about transporting students to other schools, but we have an example now in the Star Eagle area in which Star is abundantly full, and so we've adjusted those boundaries, or we've started moving those students from Star to Eagle. And if you ever try to do that during peak hours, and the school district has a major impact on that traffic itself between teachers and parents. It can take half hour to 45 minutes to kind of navigate those lines and to get a bus in and out of those. So that's something we have to strongly consider when we are doing that. Besides that, the particular struggle we have beyond distance and traffic is that at any given time, we might have 80 to 85% of our bus drivers actually at work because many will call off, or we just don't have a deep bench or bullpen. And so we usually have fewer drivers than we have buses or bus routes. And so they're doubling up. It's just a challenge. We'll keep trying to find creative solutions. But as Dr. Bubb mentioned, we never like upsetting children or families. In an ideal world, a student would learn in the community that they're also playing ball in, that they're also visiting with their neighbors in. We just think that's a better culture ideally.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavner.
Mr. Mayor. I want to echo Councilmember Strader's compliments about the student generation letters. Probably outside of our staff report, to me, it's like one of the most valuable documents that we can have. And while I have to admit, some trustees are going to fall off the Cavner family Christmas card as a result of a hire, I commend you guys for an exceptional hire. I do have a couple of questions, though, about the student generation letter that would be helpful for me. And it goes back to, David, I think your first comment about architectural capacity versus essentially programming capacity.
Yes.
How, recognizing we all as a kind of a joint team that's up here are trying to make the best decision possible. And so those letters and the student generation is very valuable information. How should we as a council, when we see those letters, understand what the architectural capacity is versus the programming side? Because again, we want to make the right decision. If a school can hold 800 students, but really needs to function with 700 students, that's really, really valuable information. And I want to take that into account when I make a decision. So have you guys as a team contemplated what the best way that you can communicate that to us? And so that way we've got a good understanding about what the real impacts of a new students to this particular school would mean.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Cavanagh, that's a very good question. And I wish I could give you just a clear, simple answer on it. The published capacities are the architectural capacities. So most of our elementaries have capacities of, say, 700 students. The program capacity that we address is the program capacity we have today. The thing that we can flex in order to generate some capacity is move that preschool. But that also comes with challenges, and then we run out. So there isn't a clear way for us to communicate to you, this is what it is. We could generate the letter in such a way that we say, this is the program capacity as we believe it to be today. But you all need to know too that we find some places for adjustment in that capacity. For example, high schools, middle schools. High schools, middle schools have a published capacity. Owyhee High School is over capacity. Principal Cliff Rice behind me will tell you that. But we also know that that's if teacher A sits down in a classroom with his or her classes all day and stays in that same classroom. There is some ability in high schools to have traveling teachers when we get too far over capacity. And a lot of high schools make that adjustment and make it pretty well. So it's really hard to kind of get to that program capacity and give you straight black and white answers, if that makes sense. We could say, this is our program capacity and these are the programs we have at the school. That may help you some.
Mr. Mayor, I always yield to the superintendent.
I just want to respond with one thing. One of the areas that we're feeling the growth probably at the most is not being able to move those programs around. I actually asked our chief academic officer recently to give me a copy at every single one of our schools. What programs do we have? Do we have a preschool? Do we have ML? Do we have what special education programs do we have? And it used to be, okay, well, we have this program at school A. We can move that program to school B. Well, now we have that program at school A and we already have it at school B. So we're starting to feel that pinch a little bit where we're in a bind where we can't move those programs around as easily. we're starting to feel that, and we'll try to communicate that in a more effective way to the council as we send out those.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
Superintendent Bob, I appreciate that. I think to your point, when we approve a development, we're not just looking to say, can that school accommodate the students? I think that we as a body are saying, we want this school to remain successful. And if a decision disrupts the success of the school, we invite that feedback. Again, we hold your communication in high regard, and it's so incredibly helpful. And so I think some of my questions come from that is that I realize I'm being greedy. You've given us really good data, and I'm asking for more really good data. And so if I can, Mr. Mayor, just maybe a couple other quick questions. And because your comments, David, about boundary adjustments and busing, I was telling Trustee Frazier, I have the great distinction of being a buckskin from Meridian Primary, a Jaguar from Joplin, and an Appaloosa from Chief Joseph, all without ever moving. So I understand those challenges, and I wouldn't wish, my experience, why I loved all three schools, I wouldn't wish that on the average Meridian family. So when you're generating that letter, if there are opportunities to flag, or to us know when a school reaches a certain threshold, that triggers that. So we know, okay, this school, for instance, is at 80% capacity, but we know when you start looking at 90 or 95 or 105% capacity, that's what's going to trigger boundary adjustments. I think we would invite that specific feedback as well, recognizing it's more than just checking a box, right? This is really valuable information, and I would love to know, have that at my disposal as well when I make a decision. I'm talking a lot, so Mr. Mayor, I'll maybe just one more, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be quiet. Sorry, I know I said I'm going to be done. Think back to Councilmember Strader's comments. We're a team, and we want to work with you. Your patrons are our taxpayers. Many of our taxpayers are your patrons. So in that concept of collaboration, what are things that the city can be doing better as we communicate and work with you to make these letters better, or so that you understand what it is that we're looking for from West Ada?
Mr. Mayor and Councilman Cavanagh, I think your conversation just now helped me understand a little bit more of what information you need. I think it could include probably the easiest approach would be to list for you the programs at that particular school, and at what point we'd have to think about shifting programs. Is there, and maybe make a note when we know it, is there a possibility to shift that program, or are we really at a pinch in that all the schools in that area already have one of those, have a preschool? We can't. So you've helped me appreciate the fact that we might have to add some nuance to those letters.
It's welcome. I appreciate it. Thanks, David.
Councilman Taylor.
One quick question. When you're looking at some longer term projections, how do you account for, if you do at all, maybe neighborhoods or some real estate data that would suggest maybe it's not a family friendly area, meaning primarily priced out? I don't know if this is the case or not. I think the Paramount area has probably got a higher price point than most people with 2 or 3 or 4 kids might be buying if they're looking to buy. I don't know if that's why Paramount's a little bit less, but I'd be curious to know how you kind of take in some of that information to draw some projections and then kind of forecast that out a little bit. Because I'm just thinking, are there school districts perhaps, or schools that we would be looking at? Would you be closing them in the next 5 or 10 years for lack of enough kids because all the families have moved in other places within the school district? So, because some of our developments that we're looking at, they're not fully built out for 4 or 5 years. So I'd like to know how you accommodate just sort of some demographic changes or shifts in your sort of long-term projections.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Taylor, thank you for the question. With your permission, I flipped slides while you were talking to show some of our projections. So our projections are based on historical data from that given neighborhood and how many, we call it student generation rates. Obviously, homes don't generate students. It's not a factory. But we have to look at it a little bit in terms of data. I've put up some of our hot spots in terms of student generation rates. Those are for single-family homes. Multifamily homes in that area tend to be, and we have it documented, tend to be about half of that. And you're right, to the point that sometimes as the value goes up, so too does the student generation rate go down. And so we take into account historical data, price of real estate, and we project out as much as we can. Then we keep an eye on that. We used to keep an eye on it to the point of daily or pretty regularly, but it doesn't really shift very much. We're currently in a process of deciding whether we adjust that annually, semi-annually to really make those predictions. But that is a data point that we explore in terms of if we would ever, we're not looking at any kind of closures because of any kind of drastic student generation rates. All of our schools are fully alive, functioning, and good learning's going on, and all of them, just regardless of the student generation rate. There's hundreds of students in each of our schools.
Any other questions at this point in the presentation? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just add that the final bullet is that we just keep an eye on, as much as this is a Meridian meeting, we do have to keep an eye on how growth in STAR affects Meridian schools. And so just know that that is something we are actively doing and actively in conversation with the city of STAR to see how that affects Meridian schools as well. Thank you.
Couple questions, comments from myself anyways. So I don't know when how far down the road before we think we can truth out the data? You know, I obviously have only been doing this new format for a couple of years. Half the homes aren't even built from the letters you sent. Are we thinking 3 to 4 years, or are you getting any basic data right now to validate what the new formulas we're producing?
Mr. Mayor, regarding the speed of build out on a community?
The generation numbers that were projected as you guys have modified them.
Mr. Mayor, we find that the numbers we have now based on price of housing are good, solid numbers. I spoke with Miranda just hours ago, and she is also comfortable with those numbers. We'll be reevaluating them with a planning consultant to make sure that we're spot on, but I think we're relatively close.
Mr. Mayor, with her not here, I will just say, Marcy would come in and lovingly tell us how accurate her numbers were, and a lot of times she was spot on, and so she would make those adjustments. With her absence, I would expect that Mr. Reinhardt or Dr. Reinhardt and his team will be right on that. But I would say probably at 3 to 4 range, 3 to 4 years is a pretty safe range as far as accuracy.
Okay. Maybe the only other question, and this kind of dovetailed into the first item a little bit, and I'm not going to put you on the spot for it, but previously it was Sienna and Hillsdale in the south, and there was a real need for another elementary school in South Meridian. Your data, what you've really showcased now, maybe it's more up north, closer to Star. Have you seen a contraction in the elementary push? Because it almost looks like maybe more the middle schools now where challenges are, except for maybe in places. I don't know if the numbers and that are showcasing not a decision, but a need more so than one thing or the other, or is it still to be determined over the next little bit?
Mr. Mayor, again, a very good question. We do know that both South Meridian and the northern part of our district and the Star Eagle area are areas of growth. We're going to dial that in a little closer as we do the facilities and ADA transition plan in the next 3 to 4 months. And before and we're waiting to the point of Jonathan Gillen's presentation on that money, and then we'll make decisions appropriately. But we're not seeing a significant slowdown in Hillsdale enrollment or no slowdown at all. We added a portable last year to help accommodate that growth. As you know, that site is now officially full, and but certainly South Meridian would be in play in our conversations.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey. Mr. Rice.
Mayor Simpson, Dr. Bub, council, board members. I get the great opportunity to brag about our SROs that are in our buildings in West Ada. I'll wait a second for that pop up. There's a couple of them right there.
Should move after 7 seconds. If not, I'll restart it.
Should have been the last two slides of that previous doc.
My apologies, I'm completely off track here.
That's all right. Monday.
Now, typically, Councilman Borton would have told the joke by now.
Would have killed the awkward silence.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Point of clarification. I think Councilmember Borton maybe asked who's presenting to offer a joke. So not to put the esteemed principal on the spot, but if you would like, we would give you that opportunity.
As principal and representation of West Ada, I'm going to stay away from the jokes. I've been encouraged by HR many times to do that, so I'm going to take some good advice. My name is Cliff Rice, principal at Hawaii High School. Pleasure here to talk about our SROs and their impact in all of our buildings from elementary on up to our high schools. We are honored to be in partnership with the City of Meridian for the last at least 15 years, probably closer to 20. I can remember when I was an athletic director at Mountain View High School in 2005, working closely with SROs at that time. So we know it's been pretty darn close to 20 years, if not longer, that we've shared this partnership, and very thankful for our current status of our SROs. We have 32 SROs in West Ada. 20 of them are our Meridian Police from our Meridian Police Department, led by Lieutenant Harper there. He's done a phenomenal job training them up and setting expectations of what that looks like. So thankful for that. Some of those responsibilities as an SRO in our buildings definitely varies. But obviously to protect and serve our students and staff of our schools, be a presence on campus, be very visible, which they do a phenomenal job. They're constantly walking the halls. They are even popping into classrooms, visiting students, having conversations constantly with administration. Likewise, they're training our faculty, assisting with our staff, especially our security. We're privileged to have at the high schools 1 to 2 security officers that those SROs work closely with, and with all the change that happens within just our community, within the drug trends that might happen, they're a valuable resource. Even case law, they'll come in and share some things, some hot topics that to be ahead of. They work closely with our staff, our ISCRS, the Idaho Standard Command and Response for Schools. That's our evacuation, reverse evacuation, hall checks, lockdown, all of those drills that we regularly do throughout the school year, a couple times at least, evacuation or fire drills, formerly known as. We do those every month. And so our SROs constantly train our teachers and our staff of just how to do that in the best fashion possible, how to expedite those. And so they're a tremendous resource. And like I said, just updates on drug, alcohol, tobacco trends that are throughout. We have seen over the last 10 years, especially, the use of vape and what that device looks like. And I will tell you, our SROs are key in letting us know what to look for, because those devices change rapidly. Now all of a sudden they could literally look like pins. And so they help our staff be able to identify and keep products like that out of our schools. So those are the general responsibilities. Moving to that next slide, maybe the greater or as equal impact that they have is our culture and our climate. They are another trusted adult that we have in the building, which is really nice. You can see in the picture below, that's our officer, Officer Bob down there at the bottom of that slide, that picture. That's regular throughout our district, constantly SROs interacting with students, just being another trusted positive role model. This is an advisory class. They're playing chess. And that is a group of students that love Officer Bob every day coming in. They're challenging him. And again, that's just one small example of the work that SROs do. They're a parent resource for non-school related issues. We tend to get a lot of phone calls about whether it's cyberbullying, some other issues that their students are dealing with, and we are able to hand some parents off to the SROs, their wisdom and advice, and their wisdom on legal matters. They can help them a ton and are a great resource for those parents. Our students are constantly going to our SROs as a first line of defense. They'll come in and talk to Officer Bob and other SROs, just letting them know, hey, there's something a little weird going on over here, which is tremendous. Again, it's just proof that our students have bought in to that positive person, and that it's a law enforcement agent that's in the building and that they trust and feel comfortable going to. They constantly partner up with our counselors and social workers in our buildings. Again, working with both our counselors and outside counselors, giving us advice and feedback and working alongside those individuals. This is kind of interesting one. Over the last few years, I've had more and more students just vocalize how they see the SRO in the building and they can envision themselves becoming a law enforcement agent. So putting somebody in our building that they now can maybe create a pathway to what next might look like for them after high school. That's been fun to watch. And again, it goes to the work that those SROs do. They are constantly, if you've seen TikTok, Instagram, other social media, they are heavily involved in attendance of our activities and our athletics. Again, just demonstrating not only to our students, but our parents see the positive interaction that our law enforcement have with our students and just building the trust and again, setting the stage for the beautiful community that we live in. Questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
Cliff, I couldn't agree with everything you just said more. I think the SRO program is probably one of the most important programs, not just in your schools, but in our police department. But I want to correct you on the years.
Okay, go for it, Councilman.
I was an SRO at Meridian High School in the early 90s. And when I graduated from Meridian High School, the first SRO in Meridian Police, was in the late 70s. We've had this partnership between the school district and the police department for close to 45, almost 50 years now. And it's tremendous that it's grown to what it is now. But it's a hats off to both organizations for how long we've been able to do this and keep this running. And we can keep up with the growth and you keep up with the growth. And we're able to provide all these SROs for elementaries, middle school and high schools, the alternative schools, for everything that you guys bring forward that we can serve. It was one of the greatest assignments I ever had when I oversaw the contract for just over 10 years with the district, worked hand in hand, doing everything on the backside, agreeing to what an SRO's duties would be and how we would accomplish those duties in a direct partnership. It was probably one of the greatest experiences seeing how good it was to work with West Ada and how two organizations that really have different goals, when you really sit down, we're all there for the kids. And we don't want kids to have their first opinion of a police officer to be when they see him in the rearview mirror. When we can do what we do in the schools and do such a positive way to interact with them, it's a community changing event. And I appreciate the words you said. I think they're great. Thank you.
Councilman Overton, thank you. And thank you for that service.
And maybe a couple additions to, it's been a little bit over a year since they've been in our elementary schools edition. And last fall, fall of 2023, when I was out walking at the schools, I took some time to speak to each of the elementary principals who was there to get their perspective on having them more frequently, more visible in the schools and the impact that they had already had and seen, especially on helping identify the challenges and getting involved with those families very early in that context was one of the things that was really pointed out. And then on some of the positive elements is the standout student that they've started in the schools this year. And I know that's a large effort of our SROs, which are helping identify the student of the month essentially through that process, working with the school and their involvement. And it's been great. I've been able to go out on the last two presentations that have been done in that context. And then today I was walking at Chief Joseph, and it's clear the SROs are much more popular than the mayor. 100%. As the kids really rallied around them, and there's just something about that age, especially in the elementary school, where they see that individual, especially dressed up, uniform, and they're drawn to them in that context. And so I just want to say, I know the council has changed a little bit since even those that made the decision, but many are still here. Thank you so much for making that investment and getting them into the elementary schools. And thank you to the police department for helping prioritize that. I know it's been a challenge within the department as they, try to fill positions, but it's still get the necessary resources in there. So hats off to everyone who's helped us get to this point in time. And I think that the first 45 years have been great. And I look forward to see where we continue to grow and evolve this over the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, we have reached the end of our agenda. Any comments generally for the good of the order?
Are we on? Okay, there we go. Yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this opportunity. I think it's really important for the community to see West Ada and our city council, our mayor work together. I think that's how we help kids and help the community. I definitely think what we do affects each other. So I think these are really important meetings, and definitely the things we've gone over tonight, I think illustrate that well. So thank you for this opportunity.
Agreed. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
I just want to reiterate, we appreciate the partnership. And I think working really closely on those letters and each application will help us make better decisions. Every now and then we hear chatter, that we're not reading them or we're not checking them, and that could not be further from the truth. You may hear about an application from the other night that we actually continued so we could get your feedback. It is very important to us, and we want to hear it before we make those decisions. So just wanted to reinforce that and really appreciate you prioritizing those letters. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
I used to say, serving on a homeowners association is the most thankless form of public service. The last 4 years has taught us anything is that I was wrong. And serving as a school trustee is probably the most thankless job in public service. And so we don't say it enough, but thank you. Thank you to you for serving, the staff, the administration that's here, our incredible teachers in West Ada who've had to pivot and pivot and pivot again to impact our kids. It really, really makes a difference. And so thank you for coming. I'm going to challenge and encourage us all to do this again more frequently. We're neighbors, we're friends. Let's get around, let's wrestle about big ideas. Let's celebrate wins together. And so my hope, Mr. Mayor, Trustee Bub, Superintendent Bub, Trustee Frazier, twice a year, in the fall after students have come to school, in the springtime before summer vacation, we want to hear your successes, we want to hear your challenges, we want to work with you, and look forward to having those opportunities to continue to partner. Appreciate you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Thank you. As someone with 4 kids in West Ada, 2 in high school, middle school, and elementary, I get to see up close a lot of the impact on kids and parents. And I just want to compliment the culture that we have. I think the teachers that my kids interact with have been great for us, the administration, all the way up. So just compliments to the trustees, the staff, superintendent, everyone that all the work that you do. Again, I get lots of emails, probably sometimes too many, it seems like, from teachers, but I really appreciate it. I always like to hear what's bubbling from Dr. Bub and the emails that are sent out, but just, again, just want to send my compliments as someone who is fully invested as a parent in West Ada. You guys do a really great job.
All right. Superintendent, any last?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would just echo all of these comments. I really appreciate the relationship. Not everybody sees the relationship that the city has with the school district and that the school district has with the city. I think the SROs is a really good example of what can happen when all of us come together to the table and work together towards a common cause. I appreciate the fact that we can have really rich discussions around student achievement and what we're doing for this community. I think that's really important work. And so thank you for everybody up here's leadership. Thank you for the continued partnership. And I look forward to a great end of the school year. Graduations are around the corner. So here we go.
Yes, I think that you don't get paid enough just for attending graduations.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Cavanagh.
For our motion to adjourn, just a quick program announcement. We're celebrating Hawaii's Boys Basketball State Championship Day in Meridian tomorrow here at City Hall. You're all invited to attend. With that, Mr. Mayor, I motion we adjourn.
Motion adjourned. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Guys have it. We are adjourned.